So we're on the part 3 of Makeup Week. So let's do some more makeup. So I went through the Piazza posts. I at least commented on, I think, all the suggestions. I either said I'm going to cover it or gave a brief reason why I'm not going to cover it. And then the ones I'm not covering, I tried to give them some help in Piazza. So double check those if you posted. If there's something you wanted to see that I'm not covering, just go check it out. Zianatri, UB, Alex B, Zoolopips, Ellipso. What's up? You can't see anything, UB gang? That's... Oh, and when I was muted, I was just... I was welcoming UB gang. I like seeing new usernames in the chat. What's up? Oh, Grudge, JS. What's up? You should be able to see stuff, though, UB gang. Maybe try refreshing. Alright, so let's get into this. So I went through there. If you check that post, you could see what I'm going to cover today. And I just want to say, if you're watching this on YouTube and you had to be prompted by myself or a TA, like, I don't know. I don't really know what to say to you, but there's no reason to not have complete what I'm covering today. So if you were sent here by someone, if it's December and you're just hearing this for the first time, get your crap together. There's a reason you're about to fail a course, so I don't know. You got to keep up on lectures. Watch the lectures. I know it's tough online only, but it's something you have to do. In fact, it's something you're paying to be able to do. I'll never understand that mindset of paying for college and then just completely blowing it off. But anyway, that's my warning. If you're watching this unprompted, if you're here on Twitch, what's up? If you're watching this on YouTube and you weren't prompted and pushed into watching this, what's up? Let's learn some things. So let's go over the requests and talk about some stuff. So I want to start off with 1-3. So we had this question. Oh crap! I didn't set up the test. I wanted to set up the test before, but I'll let's do this with less testing actually. So with this question, we wanted to take two lists of sounds and be able to iterate over both of them at the same time and find the alliteration length of these lists of sounds. We're effectively finding the common prefix of these lists of sounds. So let's go through this question and talk into the future. Hell yeah. And do this question. So let me set this up first. I'm going to leave this up over on my other screen over here. So if I'm looking over here, I'm looking at the lecture question. But I'm going to switch to Intellij for the stream. So let's go to Intellij. But that's a reminder of what we're covering. And for obvious reasons, I'm not pushing these ones to the repo. Let me start a new package. This won't be pushed, but live coding example. So I'm not going to have the right package names here, but we're creating a Scala class named Word with the following. Before I get to that, let me set up some tests. Or no, actually, let me do this first. With the following, a constructor that takes a value that's a list of strings, and I highlighted val so you know to do that. So I want a class, and today is mostly going to be OOP stuff. Today, this example, I'll start with classes, then I'll get into the other examples, inheritance, polymorphism, and all that goodness. So a constructor that takes a value that's a list of strings, and the name of this is not declared anywhere, so I can't use this in my testing, but I can give it some name. Sounds I think is appropriate. Separate list. For more information on sounds, check out the Rhyming Dictionary homework. And a method named Alliteration Length. I need the name. Alliteration Length that takes a word as a parameter. No specified name, so I'm going to give it whatever name I want. I'm going to call it other word because this is a word that we're comparing to. And it's going to return an int, which is the alliteration length of these two words. So one of the first questions that I get with this question is I only have one word here. There's only one word that this method has. So how in the hell do I compare it to another word when there's only one word? This is a good question. And it's because this method is being called from an object of type word, which means we have access to the calling object through the keyword this. So we have the sounds from this. We have the sounds of the other word. So we have two lists of sounds we have access to, and we can compare this for the alliterations. Literally working on this when lecture started. PJB, this is for you, my friend. Don't cry at the interview. And there are limited makeup opportunities. So I don't have to give you any interview makeup opportunities, by the way, Toldfish. But, for most reasonable cases, I'm going to give you opportunities. But the interviews that, I started interviewing for LO1 this week. Anyone who was interviewing with me, it was already their third interview opportunity. At that point, I'm going to start saying, no, you failed the course at some point, depending on certain circumstances and depending on the student themselves. There's not always makeup opportunities. But everybody should get at least one or two makeup opportunities. But don't start pissing away those... I got to watch my language today. Don't start blowing off those interviews because, if you're not taking them seriously, I see no reason in continuing to give you more of those. But if you're doing what you're supposed to and you're trying and working hard, there's no reason to not give you a lot of opportunities. So we also want to test this thing. I'll do test word, get rid of all this. Test alliterations, which I spelled wrong. Alliterations. And I'm going to go to the lecture slide. And this is something I'm surprised I haven't seen every single time I've seen this in office hours. I'm surprised I haven't seen this for everybody's code ever, is I gave you a test case. You should code up that test case. So this test case I should have seen in every single person's code. Oh, geez. What am I doing here? In every single person's code when you came to office hours to talk about this question. So we need to test this method. This method is defined in a class. So to be able to work with this method, we have to create an object of this type to be able to get to be able to call this method. We can't do anything with a class itself. Classes, we only write classes. They only exist to be able to create objects. So we're going to use the keyword new and create a new object of type word by calling the constructor. The constructor call goes on the stack with a new stack frame, runs all the initialization code, and returns a reference to a new object that's on the stack, and then a reference to that object is stored in the variable that we declared here. So word 1 and word 2 are referring to two different words with two different lists of sounds that are stored on the heap. And now with these words, with these objects, I can call word 1 dot alliteration length and then give it a second word. So when I make this call inside alliteration length, inside that method and inside that stack frame, we're going to have word 2, which is going to be the input word. That's going to be assigned to other word passed by reference. And the keyword this, since word 1 is the object that's calling the method, I did word 1 dot alliteration length. So the object before the dot, that's the object that's calling this method. So this is going to store a reference, which is going to be the same reference as word 1. And I want to assert that this is I can just look here and assert that that's 3. I want at least one more test here. I'm just going to do it like this to make things a little easier. Test alliterations 2. Oh my goodness. 2. And for this one, I want at least one more test. I should have a lot more tests here, but just for the sake of time, I'm not going to do as many as I normally would. But I want at least one where one of the entire words is a prefix of the other one. So all of these sounds match all of these sounds here, and then there's more to go on. So this is a common edge case, a common thing where it's easy to miscode. It's easy to miss this case where the entire word is an alliteration of the other word. It's easy to write code where this input is going to fail. Your code is going to crash. Something bad is going to happen with this input. It's easy to do. So 2 test cases, by no means comprehensive. You should have much more than this. You should have a lot more just regular old cases with different alliteration lengths. You should have an alliteration length of 0. Actually, let's do that one. Let's just add one sound. One sound to the beginning of this one. So to make sure we have an alliteration length of 0. And for good measure, let's do it like this. So it looks like it's very close to an alliteration, but it's actually length 0. Get some testing. Cool. Got our testing. And we have access to both sounds through the 2 references, the calling object through this, and the parameter, the other word, through the parameter. So we have our 2 references. We can access both their lists of sounds. And now what I want to do is iterate over both of these lists at the same time. Now before I do that, I'm going to set up a little bit of code, just the kind of stuff that I know I'm going to need. I'm going to need a variable. I'll call it length found for the length of the alliteration that I found, and that's going to be what I'll return from this method. Now that I want to iterate over both of these sounds at the same time, both of these lists of sounds at the same time. I'm not going to use zip as well, Pips. I didn't show you zip. It wouldn't be fair if I required zip in the question. So what I would kind of like to do is say for sound in this dot sounds and iterate over each sound in that list. But I'm going to run into trouble here because I have to iterate over both of these lists at the same time. I want to iterate, start at index 0, then index 1, and compare each of the sounds for both of these lists at the same time. This isn't going to get me there because, great, I can iterate over this dot sounds, but like, how do I go other word dot sounds? How do I loop over both of them at the same time? So this, no good, not going to work for me. What I want to do instead, since I want to iterate over the indices, I want to check index 0, index 1, index 2. What I want to do instead is go 0 until, this dot sounds dot length. I can use my until or to method to be able to iterate over the indices. Like we saw when I very first introduced loops in Scala. This is what I showed in the warning here that's saying, hey, you have something you can do better. I can actually do this dot sounds dot indices. And that'll iterate over all the indices of a list. So if this dot sounds is length 3, this is going to iterate over 0, 1, and 2. That's going to give me those indices for that list. But that's still not quite what I need. So this will be fine if... So let's go to the tests. Actually, I don't think I set up a test. Yeah, I did. So if this is the length of the list that I'm checking, I'm iterating over these indices. I'm going to iterate over 0, access both lists at index 0, and compare them. They're equal. Increment to 1, they're equal. 2, they're equal. And then I'm going to go to index 3, and I'm going to get an index out of bounds error right here because this word isn't long enough to be able to handle that. I'm iterating over more indices than my other word has. So I have to think ahead a little bit and realize that this is going to be an issue. So I don't want to do just this dot sound dot indices, sounds dot indices. What I want to do is the minimum What I want to get is the shorter list, the shorter of these two lists, and iterate over those indices. So I want to take the minimum of the lengths of these lists just to make sure I'm not going out of bounds on one of the lists. So that's the let me call this min length. And now I'm going to get rid of my pretty indices here and go back to 0 until min length. Capital L. And the until is going to exclude the endpoint. So if min length is 2, this is going to go 0 and 1. So I'm excluding the endpoint, which is what I want. If the min length is 2, I want to get indices 0 and 1, not 0, 1, and 2. So if I did 2, that's going to include the endpoint, and that's going to give me an index out of bounds error. But if I do until, it's going to exclude that endpoint. I could also do 2 min length minus 1. You know, that's going to work for us too. I'll just use until because it's there for this purpose. So I don't have to have minus 1s all over my code. Expansion interviews are just during, like when you demo your calculator in the normal interview, just, you know, get your TA's attention at some point and say, hey, I also did the expansion objective. They'll go, oh, cool, expansion objective. Demo it to them, and they'll mark it and submit that to me. If you do the expansion objective after the homework's due, I still don't know how we're doing the logistics of that. I want to figure out something streamlined, but you know, we'll handle that when it becomes more relevant. So now, for each index, I want to check one thing: if this dot sounds dot apply I. So get the sound at index I. If that equals other word dot sounds dot apply, not quite index, we'll talk about that when we get to linked lists proper, but I'm going to use the apply method to pretend that these are indices, and if they're the same, increment length found by 1. I'm continuing the alliteration length. It's still an alliteration. We're going to increment that length. If those are not equal, then this is no longer an alliteration, and I can do something that the Scala community doesn't want us to do. But right then, I know I'm done computing anything. If I found 2 sounds that are not the same, I'm done. I can just end this stack frame right here. I already found my answer. I don't have to mess with anything else. I can slap a return. This is the only time you actually see a return statement in my code. Right here. But you can do this without a return. If I do, actually, can I do this? I don't know if I've tried to. Yeah, no, I can't do that. For my solution, I didn't use a return, but I set things up a bit differently than I did here. I want to do it the simpler way. Yeah. Oh, and do it small. So this is something I'm recommending to students who are way behind in lecture questions. If there's one question that you're stuck on, don't sink a lot of time into it. Just move on to the next one, as long as you understand the concept. But if you're having trouble with applying the code, like the concept for this one was objects. If you know how to create an object, you know that it's passed by reference. You understand what the keyword this does. If you understand those things and you're just having trouble trying to set up this loop, that's something where you should just go on to the next question. And then as you get later on in the course, like when you're on Learning Objective 4 lecture questions, you can come back to a lecture question like this and just knock it out of the park in minutes with the coding experience that you have at that point. If you're getting just caught up on how to write a for loop in Scala and how to get this done, don't sweat it. Just move on to the next one, as long as you understand the concepts that I'm really testing with that lecture question. Let's run our tests, and we should be good to go on this one. We are not good to go. I rename my test name. As far as errors go, I'll take it. It's an easy one. You can't have duplicate test names. And we pass. So that's one way to solve this. Do I want to do another way? Not really, I guess. Kind of do. I'm going for it. I'm doing it. So let's solve this one more way. I'll do this one quickly. But let's use some good old recursion. So if I want to solve this recursively, I'm going to recurse over the indice that I'm currently considering. And I want to check if let me just name this I, so I'm back where I was. Oh, I should have thought this one through a little more. If I greater than or equal to other word dot sounds dot length. Ooh, man. No, I got it. I did not prepare this example, as you can tell, so I got to think this through. So if got stuck on the, because you've messed the return keyword. Yeah, that one's a little tricky. You don't have to use return. So the way I did it in my solution is instead of using a for loop, I used a while loop and then controlled my own index. And then I set that index variable to the longer length plus 1 and just said that's when we're breaking. Or you could set it up with a while loop and say, while this dot sounds apply of I equals other sound dot apply of I. While that's true, increment I by 1. And add some extra conditions to make sure you don't go out of bounds. So with this, I'm going to check, are these equal? It's a little trickier than I thought it would be, but I'm committed now. If they're equal, then we're going to say we're going to increment the alliteration length and make a recursive call. Else we're in our base case where we're just going to return 0. And I need a few more base cases. I'm going to say else if we are at the end of one of these two words, if I greater than or equal to this dot sounds dot length, or I is greater than or equal to other word that sounds that length, also return 0. So we're going to say there's no iteration length if we're out of bounds, or if the words are not the same. And I have to reverse these. That would be a big mistake here. I have to do the bounds check first. And if these are the same, return 1 plus the recursive call. Other word, I plus 1. So advance through this thing. Why you give me an error there? Too many arguments for, oh, helper. Run our tests. UB gang, your interview was so boring that you fell asleep and that's your excuse for failing it? Am I reading that right? For makeup interviews, you'll be contacted, though. You don't contact the TAs about that. And, of course, we pass. So our base case, we're going to say if we're out of bounds or if the sounds are not the same, we're going to say that's an alliteration length of 0. So we're kind of finding the alliteration length of the the rest of the words. And if the sounds are the same, then that's the alliteration length of the rest of the words minus that first sound plus 1 and increment the counter. And then that gets us what we want to go as well. So there's a recursion example of the same thing. But let's move on. I didn't want to spend that much time on that question. OBS. For the next one, yeah, we got time. We can do all this. I want to do 2-2. Ellipso, yeah. Somebody check Piazza and read what I'm doing. We want to do 2-2. Well, guess what? That implies we got to do 2-1 first, which by implication covers 1-6. So we're doing the triple threat here. We're doing the whole dang thing. So let's go through this one. We got batteries, we got charges, we got polymorphism, we got inheritance. So this one was inheritance. I want to focus on the polymorphism and inheritance as I go through these ones. So this one was inheritance, and let's just freaking go through the thing. I'm not going to be able to. Where am I? There I am. I might not be able to do all the tests for this one for the sake of time. So I'll push the tests off till last if we get there. Oh, but the testing was hard. Yeah, maybe I will have to. I wonder if I can do that quickly. How would I do that? I don't think I got a good way to do that. So let me set up the question. I'll do testing at the end if we get there. So let's set up our classes. We need a battery. So a class battery with a constructor that takes a variable named charge of type int. So variable. We do have a name here. Charge of type int. And most of the descriptions, the write-ups, it's translating this English into Scala. So there's my battery class. Constructor that takes one variable named charge of type int. Nothing else to do for that one. An abstract class electronic. Is going to be an abstract class because it's not going to be fully defined. A constructor that takes no parameters, so no constructor. And a state variable named battery of type battery. Now if I need a state variable and the constructor takes no parameters, I know what I got to do. I got to put it out here. This is a state variable, so var, named battery of type battery. Dunzo. A method use that takes no parameters, returns unit, and can be abstract, so I'm going to leave it abstract. I'm just not going to give it a definition. I'm not going to do anything here. I'm just going to leave it abstract. Same with battery. Battery doesn't get any initial value, so this is abstract as well. And a method named replace battery def replace battery that takes a battery of type battery, returns a battery, and this method is going to swap the batteries. So this dot battery, I need to swap. With swap, I'm going to need a temp variable. This can be a value actually. Temp equals this dot battery. That type is battery. So since that's stored in a temp variable, I can replace this dot battery. Battery. And notice I have duplicate names here, but one's a parameter and one is this dot battery. This is where I actually have to use this. If I erase this, I'm going to get an error here. But there's a difference between this dot battery and battery in this case. And then this dot battery, and then return temp. So I'm returning the battery that was in this electronic. I'm stuck on return now. I'm returning the battery that was in this electronic. I'm replacing the battery that's in this with the battery that I'm given. And I got all the functionality that I need here. New Scala class flashlight with a lowercase l. Flashlight, constructor takes no parameters. And when a new flashlight... Oh, I missed the most important part here. Extends electronic. So flashlight is going to extend electronic. This is inheritance. The flashlight is going to inherit all of the functionality of an electronic. So this flashlight has a state variable named battery, a method named use that returns unit, and a method named replace battery that takes a battery and returns a battery and does this swap. So this, when I do extends electronic, that's the same thing as if I just pasted all this code over in Flashlight. That's what extends does. Flashlight extends electronic. Give me everything in electronic. Flashlight is inheriting everything that's defined in electronic. And then we can add more to this. So we effectively have all of this code already in the Flashlight class. And in fact, that's why I'm getting this error here, because it's going to say replace battery already exists. So you can't just declare it. I could do an override here and say whatever it used to do, don't do that anymore. But I'm not doing that. So we have all this code in Flashlight, and we do have an error because the code that we have is not fully defined. We have this use method with no definition, but we have this class, not abstract class. Abstract class means that not everything is defined. Like we could get the same error right here. It's going to say not fully defined or whatever, with more words, whatever it says. Because use is not defined, battery is not defined. So we have to define these things. We already have a var battery. Now, since we inherited the battery, guess what we get to do? This dot battery equals... in our next piece of functionality, comes with batteries included with charge 5. New battery, charge 5. Yeah, you know what? I knew that was a thing. I think we do need this. So we do have to... There's one of two things we can do here. We can either initialize this to nothing. Actually, there's a few things we could do. We could initialize it just to some battery that we know we're going to replace. Scala lets us use this underscore syntax, which effectively sets this to nothing, and we have to assign that some value before we can use that. Or one other thing we can do is, just like methods, we can override variables. And we can do override battery and get it done that way. I have to get var, yeah. Override var battery, get my type in here. So we can do it that way as well. So a few different things that we can do to be able to handle that. I might have missed saying that in lecture. So I would assume most of you would just assign this some new battery and then override that battery when the time comes. Is what I would expect for y'all to figure out. But this is a cleaner way. Actually, I don't even like this way. I think this is the cleanest way, using the keyword this. This dot battery equals new battery, and then set this equal to underscore. I like that way, personally. It's the least code. It's the least characters. And then a use method, I'm actually going to ignore that for now. And I'm going to leave the error just for a little bit. I think you can also just assign null. I think that's a thing you can do in Scala. Yeah. Yeah, and then the ID says, dude, you can just use underscore for that. And then we need our boombox as well. Boombox is going to take a battery in its constructor. Of type battery. Extends electronic. And we have to get this battery in the electronic variable. So when we start using polymorphism in the next lecture question, we pan sun, is that how you say that? I don't, watch lectures. You got to watch all the lectures. That question shows me that you don't watch lectures. So this battery that we take as a parameter, we have to get it in the variable that we inherit from electronic. So electronic already defined a variable named battery, and when we start using polymorphism, this is the variable we're going to be accessing to do our testing and get the functionality that we need. So this battery shouldn't be accessed anywhere else, whatever battery we take in this constructor. But we need to do this dot battery, the one that we inherited, because we already have a variable named battery that we got from the electronic class, and that's the one that matters. And we want to set this equal to the battery that we get in the constructor. And we can't name this the same thing. We can't have the same name here because that's going to be a naming conflict. They're both this dot battery in this case. So what I like to do is just put an underscore in front of it just to give it a different name so there's no more naming conflict. But this battery is going to be assigned to whatever battery we get in the constructor. And then we need the use method and nothing else, right? Okay, making sure I got everything. So now the use method is the next thing that we got to think about. So each one of these needs a use method that does pretty much the same thing. And my expectation for this is you would do def use and get it done inside Boombox and Flashlight. I'm going to show you something a little different just to show us some more inheritance. I'm going to put the use method right here. My goodness. Oh, I already have the use method. I'm going to define the use method right here. And we're going to say if this dot battery dot charge greater than or equal to required charge, this dot battery dot charge minus equals replace batteries. Damn it. Required. Oh, because I didn't define it yet. Of course, autocomplete isn't going to complete to something that doesn't exist. Decrement, else do nothing. And then I'm going to create a which actually can be a value. Required charge equals underscore. It does have to be a variable, unless I do the overrides. And I have to give this a type, int. And now, since I have this functionality in the electronic class, the Boombox and Flashlight both have this functionality. And now we can do this dot required charge equals 3. This dot required charge equals 1. And leverage a little more polymorphism. Since that's common functionality between these two classes, let's just abstract what's common, put that in electronic, and then whatever's different, we're going to define that in each of the classes. So our classes get pretty small here. There's not much code in either one of these. And let's get some testing in here. Oh, this one didn't even require test. Oh, because you wrote the test for 1-6. Is Boombox var battery? Yeah, if you put var there, that's fine too. It won't hurt anything. Var is going to make that underscore battery accessible to the outside world. But since nobody's going to be looking for that, it's not going to really matter. You're going to be fine. UB gang, it's going to be case by case. Like if you've blown off the entire semester, I'm not going to sit down and take the time to do 5 interviews with you in the last week of class just to watch you fail them all. But if I believe that you do know the stuff and you're showing me enough that you are going to pass, I might give you opportunities. But if you're waiting to the last week of class for 5 interviews... Oh, and you're asking for application objective. Not like... With application objectives, we can talk at some other time, but it's a case-by-case basis. If I think it's worth the time and I think you're going to benefit from it, maybe, but for application objectives, you would have had to complete the assignment already and then fail the interview. I don't think anybody's in that situation except like 1 or 2 students who completed the assignment but didn't get the application interview. Anyway, let's get back on track here. So to test these electronics, let's create... Let's do it this way. New flashlight. Vel boombox new battery of 10. So when flashlight and boombox extend electronic, that's our inheritance. They inherit all the functionality from electronic. When I'm taking a flashlight or a boombox, I'm creating an object of type boombox, putting that on the heap, getting a reference of type boombox, and then storing that reference in a variable of type electronic. That's polymorphism. When I'm using a variable of one type to store an object, a reference to an object of another type, polymorphism. This poly, many, morph. Is that right? Morph to type. Anyway, this boombox has multiple types, and we're storing it in a variable of a different type than the type that it is. Polymorphism. That is what polymorphism is. And then the implications of that and what we do is different stuff. Now, what a lot of students mess up on this one is checking the references of the batteries. On 1-6, this was a reference question, and you're handling batteries by reference and making sure your batteries are moving around your code the way you expect it to. So I would do val fbat type battery equals flashlight dot battery. So I'm going to need references to the batteries that I already exist here, and bbat, just because I'm trying to rush here, battery equals boombox.battery. So I need references to the batteries that already exist, that was created with the flashlight and that I gave to the boombox. I could also store this in a variable and then give the reference to the boombox, but either way works. Now I want to start calling methods and making sure that those batteries are moving around the way I expect. So first I'll create a new battery, just so I have 3 batteries to keep track of. New battery of charge, let's say 20. Flashlight.use, boombox.use, and I'll skip the checks of the charge. I'll assume you can check the charges just fine. But when I do flashlight dot replace battery of new bat, I can assert that that flashlight's battery is in fact new bat. So after this replace, the new battery needs to be inside the flashlight, and furthermore, this battery that's returned needs to be the battery that was in the flashlight. And that's why I stored this reference to the battery that was in the flashlight. I need to assert that what was returned is in fact that battery. And then I could do the same thing with the boombox and check the charges and make sure everything else is working. Making sure a depleted charge is still going to give me what I expect. That's checking ints. I assume everybody can do that. And I usually see that in office hours that you have the charge test. Battery.charge equals whatever. It's checking the references of the batteries that question is ultimately testing you on. So let's go to 2.2. We're expanding this functionality by using some polymorphism now. We're creating this object useElectronic that uses all the electronics in swaps batteries. So let's create this thing. Use electronics. This is an object. Object name use electronics with methods use all. Takes a list of electronics. Electronics, I guess. No S. Returns unit, because of course it's a reference question. And swap batteries. That takes 2 electronics. Returns unit and swaps the batteries. So the battery swap, that's going to be just like our replace battery, just slightly different. So temp E1.battery equals E2.battery. E2.battery equals temp. Swapping those batteries. Easy peasy. I assume y'all can do that. For electronic in electronics, electronic.use, I assume y'all can do that as well. The methods here, super simple. It's the testing that was tricky on this one. So let's duplicate this code. Test use electronics. And I'll set up some of the same code here, except I want to create a list. Instead of using like this, I'm going to create a list of type electronic equals list containing my flashlight, my boombox, and then use electronics, use all electronics, and then I would make sure that the charges are what I expect of the boombox the flashlight's battery and the boombox's battery. So I would have assert charges. Again, I assume y'all can do that part. And then the replace battery, instead of doing replace battery, I want to do use electronics dot swap batteries of the flashlight and the boombox. Assert flashlight dot battery. This is now going to equal the boombox battery. and boombox dot battery, and by reference we're making these, is going to equal the old flashlight battery. So FBAT and BBAT were in the flashlight and boombox. After swap, I'm going to check those references and make sure those batteries were in fact swapped. The B battery is in the flashlight, FBAT is in the boombox. So I'm following these, how these batteries are moving around my code, and I'm following them by reference. Hey, only 1 minute over. That ain't so bad. You upload the wrong activity for 442. I'll fix that. I rushed it. I forgot to upload. I was working on something else and tried to do it real quick right before this one. Yeah, for AO1 there should be a makeup, but I think only you might have ID'd yourself, at least to me. You might have doxed yourself, because I think there's only one student who needs the. Oh no, I'm mistaken. Everybody with the extended deadline is going to need that. Yeah, if you got the extended deadline and didn't pass the interview, you're going to get another AO1 interview. Obviously not until after that deadline. Yeah, exactly. Do it small. 442, get out of here. It's not your time. Yeah, RT Keenan. Isn't that scary? Especially when I'm just giving away solutions. 62 y'all could really make it here. And when I went on Piazza and solicited, like, what exactly do you want to see? It's ridiculous how, like, I can't deal with that, really. Especially when they want to make things my fault. It's like, you're not even watching lectures. That's like step 0 of succeeding in any course, any college course. Like, watch the damn lectures. So many students don't even do that, and then they cry to me for help. I've been helping you all semester every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I tell you exactly how to do these things. Very directly today, in fact. Yeah, I'm glad. I've gotten some good feedback about Makeup Week from those of you who are participating in it. And I'm happy I was able to help. This is a very stressful semester. So I'm making this rearrange of the schedule. It's not 4:42 time yet. Y'all got 15 minutes. Chill. And today 4:42 is an activity anyway. I don't really have much to talk about. But I'm going to try to do some live demos of deploying apps to help out, like I mentioned last time. You're welcome, Puck Guy Kev. Yeah, Lana, out. No, Lana can stay. She's part of both courses. We'll have till Sunday to catch up. I had somebody really asking me this question, like expecting a deadline. The deadlines are, I have a very loose interpretation of the word deadline, as you notice. I mean, you have to catch up. Like, it's something you have to do. If you catch up by Sunday, that's great. If you catch up by today, ideally, or last week, would be great. But if you're behind, I mean, you have to complete all 5 learning objectives by the end of the semester to pass. Like, that's what you need to do. If you're so far behind, if you're still working on LO1 right now, halfway through the semester, today marks the halfway point. Oh, by the way, today also marks the 1 full semester of online mode. For anybody keeping track, this was the day where, this is the day where last semester I was having the speech of, looks like we're going to online mode. This is how things are going to work. We're still deciding. No one heard of Zoom yet. We figured out that Zoom was a thing. This was the day last semester. This Friday of week 7. Historic right here. Anyway, but if you're still working on LO1 halfway through the semester, I don't think you can catch up. I don't think you're going to pass. If you don't finish LO1 by, let's say, Sunday, since you threw it out there. If you're still working on LO1, trying to understand LO1 concepts by Sunday, you're not going to catch up. Because when we get back to Monday, we're going back to functional programming, finishing up LO3, moving right to LO4 and 5. and you're just going to fall further behind. You can't do that. It's not going to work. You're going to fail or resign if you're still working on LO1. If you're working on LO3, or maybe you're halfway through LO2 and you're still catching up by Sunday, I think that's feasible. I think you can get caught up as long as you're putting in the hours and working at it. So it depends how far behind you are. Anyone who's fully caught up by Sunday, you're in good shape. You're doing great. If you got all the way up to LQ 3.3 and you got the learning objectives 1 and 2 done, you're doing fantastic. So it depends on exactly where you are, Puck Guy Kev. But I'd say by Sunday, if you're still working on LO1, most likely, I'm giving you a high percentage, like a 95% chance you're failing the course. You just can't fall that far behind and expect to just wake up one day and catch up. Not going to happen. It will not happen. All of you who are doing the work, you know how much work all these lecture questions and homeworks and studying for all this content, you know how much work it is. Somebody who's in that position, not happening. Will not happen. Possible, highly unlikely, unless you significantly change your approach to the course. Thanks, Goaltendy. I assume you meant good class. We cover a lot of material. If you're here to learn computer science, I think 116 is fantastic. After the redesign, you learn a lot of really cool stuff. Thanks, Dennis Grace. Hey, thanks, RT Keenan. Yeah, I guess I can't really speak for other professors. I was going to say that most of us do listen to students. The students just usually don't tell us anything. It's really hard to get feedback from students. Like even this Piazza post and asking what you want reviewed, there's not that much activity on that Piazza post. I think... So I'm happy that did get some responses, because if you're all falling behind, you got to let me know so I can know how to help you. If you don't let me know how to help you, did I close Piazza? There it is. If you don't let me know how to help you, there's nothing I can do. Even that post only has 148 views. There's a good portion of the class that did not even open that post, did not even read it, which is baffling. If I were to guess 148 views on that post, I would say max we're passing 148 students this semester. If you did not even open that post, I cannot help you. You're just gonna fail. If you care that little. Anyway, that's the stuff that baffles me, because then I have a lot of students who fail the class, and then I get 116 gets the reputation of being such a hard course. If you're not even reading my emails and opening Piazza, I can tell you exactly why you're failing. But I don't want to rant about that too long, because none of those students are going to hear me anyway. They're never going to watch this. If they didn't even open that Piazza post, come on. Please end stream for VOD. So I had a conversation. Apparently every time I cut the stream for the VOD, y'all have to refresh and you lose all the chat history and everything. So I don't know. I might not cut it today. Should I? I don't know if I want to start that today. I haven't even talked to Mike about it. Let me not start that today. So I'll cut it, but I'm still going through 116 chat, so I'll cut it right before 442. And 442 is an activity, so that won't get uploaded. If I don't get one for all LQs I missed, but I submitted attempts and I'm working to fix them, would that be enough to avoid an F for midterm grades? Midterm grades, that's a case-by-case thing. I'll look through everybody who I send an email for at risk of failure. At the end of the week, I'll look through all of that and make determinations. It's going to depend on your LQs, you better have attempted the lab if you're missing that, the interview if you're missing that. I'll look at everything. I'll take everything into consideration. And midterm grades, that doesn't show up on your transcript, by the way. That's to notify an academic advisor that you're struggling, and they're going to reach out to you to see what's going on. Yeah, Apple Atom. We'll get there. Streaming quality looks better. I was wondering if anybody noticed that. I got I set up another light. I only had one light over on this side, so my face was like half glowing. And I finally set up another light, so I got more even lighting. Made a big difference. Oh, Kylan's, that's awkward. If your interview TA said they don't take expansions, can you send me an email and let me know what TA that was? So I can make sure I mention it. We have a TA meeting today. I just want to make sure everybody's on the same page with how expansion checks go. You're not getting your TA in trouble or anything. I just want to know where our miscommunications are, because that's absolutely their job. I did have a TA ask me that actually today, so maybe they asked right after they told you, and I might have already straightened them out. But I just want to make sure. If you look up a formula for Fibonacci, as long as you're not looking up code of how to do it, that's fine. But if you're just looking up the math of how to do it, if you're just looking up the math of how to do it, that's fine. If you're looking up code of how to do it, that's not so good. That's not cool. But like, this isn't a math course, so if you need help understanding what Fibonacci is, go for it. But as long as you're still learning about recursion as you're doing it, the whole point of that question is to help you with recursion, to make homework 3 easier for you. You can't go into homework 3 without being familiar with recursion already, because that's a beast of a recursion problem. Is the crux of that homework. It's one big recursive method that you have to write. So if you're cheesing the lecture questions, you're not getting that homework. So you need to be honest with yourself when you're doing those lecture questions. Just make sure you're not getting too much help from the internet. Let's code Minecraft and Scala. I almost made that one of the projects. I was brainstorming with TAs of how to get it done, but it's just a little bit much. It's a little much. It was a serious thought. I was trying to make that the semester-long project. Now I don't even have a semester-long project. 2 semesters ago, I made the semester project in MMO JRPG, and that also turned out to be a bit much. The starter code for that is actually still in here. This project, if you're ever wondering what this is the structure that I gave them for that MMO JRPG. But yeah, it's a lot. I'm bit off quite a bit too much with that project. Now I basically don't even have a project, so you can focus on the LQs and the homeworks a bit more. The project was mostly served as a distraction, unfortunately. As much as I want to have one really big, cool project that you build, it's just not in the cards. Too much. It's already too much of a course. So much of y'all are struggling. But wouldn't it be cool if you made an MMO RPG or Minecraft and Scala? Wouldn't that be awesome? Do I program in my spare time? Sometimes, but in my spare time these days, I mostly want to not be in front of a computer. So I try to do other things. I write enough code just for my job. I'm usually burnt out by the time I'm doing something else. But I still do from time to time. Not Minecraft and Scala, though. Did you get to your emails today? This is the second time that I was in the chat. I've been catching up on emails. I actually caught up on every 116 student from a can't even talk. Every email from a 116 student over this week. It's part of my catch-up week. So you must have sent me an email like today or last night. Chill. Like, some people waited a month to get a response from me. You can chill. That said, I probably will check it. Since my inbox is pretty empty now, it's easier to stay on top of it. Toldfish is back. Yay. Yeah, read posts. When I was a student, whenever I had a question about a homework and I was completely stuck, I would just go to Piazza and browse the posts. The answer was pretty much always there for me, just sitting there waiting. That's another mindset I can't understand. Just the complete neediness of, I'm not going to bother to read or search Piazza. I'm just going to post my question. I was always surprised how many students do that. Don't even read Piazza. Don't even watch lectures. They just expect me or a TA to be at their beck and call to help them. Baffles me how students think that's appropriate. And then they get mad when we don't help them as much as they want to be helped because we don't give them the answers. There's a surprising number of students who act like that, and I can't get inside that mindset. Like, you're paying for college to be here to learn, and then you expect us to just do all your work for you without any effort or learning on your part. I was shocked to find how prevalent that was. Not too prevalent, but, one is too many, as they say. One student acting like that is crazy.